at me, but you will not be able to see me on camera because I'm using a different camera. To hear everything that I say. Hello everyone and welcome back to Future Forum. Energy. Energy is the lifeblood of Trinidad and Tobago, and we are here today to speak to you about the future of energy in Trinidad and Tobago. Our moderator this morning is Alicia Taylor. Now, Alicia currently leads the development and structuring of renewable energy projects for electric utilities in a number of Caribbean islands by managing the due diligence studies which inform optimal investment decisions as they embark upon energy transition. Joining us on the panel today is a lineup of really spectacular energy professionals. Unfortunately, Minister Stuart Young is unable to be here this morning as he had hoped, but he has sent some remarks and some really interesting insights and guides for young people as to how they can build a future in energy as the energy sector transition and changes in Trinidad and Tobago. Also on the panel, we have Miss Alicia Taylor, who is representing the Inter-American Development Bank. Now, before joining the IDB group, Alicia was a consulting partner providing financial advisory and strategic planning services in the region. Alicia is at the forefront of renewable energy in the Caribbean and has some really exciting things to share with you all today. We also have on the panel Mr. Philip Julian, who is the founder of Heroes Foundation, but he's also the managing director of KenSJ Green Limited, which is looking at hydrogen in the Trinidad and Tobago energy sector. And of course, as all of our panels do, we have two very special youth participants, Mariah and Zion. Now, Mariah is 14 years old and Zion is 17 years old. Mariah is excited about the energy sector and this transition to green renewable energy. And Zion is a young aspiring lawyer who's currently an intern at the Office of the Attorney General and Legal Affairs. So ladies and gentlemen, it is my absolute pleasure to pass you over to this morning's moderator, Ms. Alicia Taylor, to lead on our future of energy discussions.
Thank you, Lauren, and good morning to all of our esteemed panelists and to our audience. Thank you all for joining. Today we have a very exciting forum on energy for you, where we blend experience and youth. We blend our current experts with our future experts. When I myself was a teenager, not that long ago, renewable energy was a complete dream to me. It was not even in my realm of possibilities. But the energy sector has evolved extremely rapidly since then. I want to especially welcome our young participants here today, and I want to share a nugget of wisdom with you that a great mentor once shared with me. Your job in 5 to 10 years most likely does not even exist today. This has been very true for me, and I have had to be very agile in my career decisions. I now work in my dream job in renewable energy. Together with my team, we harness natural resources like wind and solar to improve the livelihoods of people. We do this by providing them with clean and affordable electricity. I like to extend that concept of leveraging resources a bit further, and I like to think about human energy and leveraging human energy as a source of great power. Think about it like this. What can we achieve by harnessing our own human energy, our own human resource, to develop creative and sustainable solutions? Forums like this are all about generating ideas so that we can focus our energy to reach our full potential. Today we're going to talk about something very exciting, your future. The energy transition is knocking on our door, and by the time you enter the workforce, it will be in full swing. Trinidad and Tobago is indeed a very prosperous nation. What is not part of the common narrative, though, is that we actually underwent an energy transition in the 1950s. We were primarily driven by oil, but then we started to monetize our natural gas, and we became a leader on the world stage. Think about back then. Many difficult conversations must have occurred at that time, and many hard and brave decisions must have been made. We continue to benefit from those decisions decades later. In this forum, we'll explore the new energy transition and how do we balance and leverage our natural gas that remains now to facilitate the vision that we have for our country and for ourselves. In a minute, you're going to experience two videos. The first from our youth participants, Brian and Mariah, followed by a video from the Minister of Energy and Energy Industry, Minister Young. After that, we'll hear from Philip Julian and Alicia Taylor. Following the presentation, there'll be a question and answer forum, so please feel free. If any ideas or questions pop into your mind, please put them in the chat and we'll address them. With that, let's begin the videos.
Trinidad and Tobago is a country living off of the energy industry. As a signatory of the Paris Climate Accord, we need to focus on building a sustainable future by reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. We as a nation can do so much more.
Yes, we need to find ways to incorporate renewable sources of energy into our country. This will only benefit our country and economy in the long run.
I think it would be cool if we had solar-powered buses that would use green energy and be saving money in the long run.
Don't you see how hot it is these days? Renewable sources of energy would decrease our carbon footprint. Climate change is real and impacts our country.
We really need to start taking steps to keep our environment safe and clean. Recycling should be implemented, enforced, and supported in a big way. There's too much pollution in Trinidad and Tobago.
All this can be done if the government enforces the laws on littering that currently exist and amend or craft new laws to keep up with the constantly developing country.
If there was a system to receive 10 cents per plastic bottle, when we recycle, it would make a huge difference, and it will assist individuals such as unemployed persons to create a revenue stream.
There are recycling bins around, but do trainees really know where their garbage goes to be recycled? We need more education campaigns to show Trinidadians how they can recycle at home.
Everyone should have recycling bins at home, and there should be different days for garbage men to pick up the recycling. Trainees need to get on board because recycling is everyone's business.
You know, it's also important what happens after they take the recycled item out. We need a structured recycling system whereby everything is segregated and broken down to reuse.
The government should invest in solar and wind turbine fields to generate energy for Trinidad and Tobago.
Solar panels. Could you imagine how much Trinidadians would save and how beneficial to the earth solar panels at every house will be? This way, all the sun can be put to a better use. We can go a step further. Let's innovate and create our own electric cars. We should mass produce them and make them affordable to the majority so that anyone can have an electric car.
You know, electric cars would help decrease our carbon emission and help with our carbon footprint. We can also export them throughout the Caribbean.
Since we are the future, connecting with us would make the change the earth needs. We, the youth,
see the importance of preserving the environment, and we can make the impact.
Honorable Ministers, Mr. Lawrence Arjun, CEO of the Heroes Foundation, Ms. Karina Cockburn, IDB Country Representative, my fellow presenters, and last but not least, and most importantly, you, the youth participants in today's Future Forum. Good morning. I am honored to have been invited to participate in this inaugural Future Forum hosted by the Heroes Foundation and the Inter-American Development Bank, the IADB. I wholeheartedly commend the Heroes Foundation and the IADB for taking the initiative to empower the youth of Trinidad and Tobago and for the continued investment in the people of our beloved country. I'm heartened to see so many leaders taking the time to share their knowledge, their thoughts, their views, and just as many young people willing to learn and to discuss as we move our country forward. Today, I wish to share with you my perspective on the future of the energy sector in Trinidad and Tobago and globally, including the impact of climate change, the need for sustainability, and the availability of career opportunities. I'm sure that many of you, if not all, have heard about climate change, perhaps on the news or in your classrooms. Trinidad and Tobago, as a small island developing state, is particularly vulnerable to the effects of climate change, such as more intense hurricane seasons, rising sea levels, changes in what we once deemed as our normal weather patterns. The question is, what does this have to do with energy and the future of the energy sector? Over the past hundreds of years and more, fossil fuels, namely coal, oil, and natural gas, have been the dominant source of energy and are also the major source of greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gas emissions are responsible for the acceleration of climate change and, unfortunately, its adverse effects. As a consequence, the global community, including Trinidad and Tobago, have committed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We have set a target of 15% reduction in carbon dioxide emissions from the energy sector by 2030. Other countries have established their own individual targets. To achieve their goals, countries including Trinidad and Tobago, as part of their strategies, are adopting renewable energy sources such as solar, wind, hydro, and geothermal, as these forms of energy emit no greenhouse gas emissions. Trinidad and Tobago by 2022 would have its first major renewable project, which is a solar utility project between affiliates of BPTT and Shell International. It is projected that by 2050, renewable energy sources will comprise 26% of the world's primary energy needs and will begin to eclipse fossil fuels as the main primary energy source. The ultimate goal is to achieve a carbon neutral position in which there is no net release of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. With increased penetration of renewable energy in the energy mix, there will be a need for persons involved in the design, manufacture, and installation of renewable energy sources and systems. Qualified electricians, research and development personnel, to name just a few. The demand for these skills will soon become apparent with the completion of our first major solar project scheduled for 2022-2023. This project will be a significant solar project producing 112.2 megawatts of energy into our energy grid or electricity grid. We are currently undertaking a feasibility study for producing green hydrogen on an industrial scale as part of our transition to a green economy. This is in keeping with the global movement, which has been fueled by special funding arrangements. From a career perspective, the increased investment will lead to a growth in renewable energy jobs, which in 2019 stood at 11.5 million and is projected to grow to 42 million jobs by 2050. It is indeed an exciting and dynamic time in the energy sector, and I invite all of you, the youth participants, to jump on board, to get on board, as in fact as we go forward, it is your world, it is your globe, and it is important for you to participate as we define what the future and the future of energy will look like. During the transition to renewable energy sources, measures such as carbon capture, utilization and storage are being explored by other countries. Trinidad and Tobago has established a committee to investigate the potential to capture carbon dioxide emissions from our various industrial processes and to utilize it in other processes, including enhanced oil recovery. This is another dynamic area: carbon capture, storage and utilization. As I speak about the future of the energy sector, you may wonder, what does it all mean? What does it mean in particular for you? Whatever the shape of the energy sector, the future of the energy sector, qualified personnel will continue to be a key fundamental feature. Understandably, the accelerated transition to a carbon neutral world may be a cause for concern for young people who have recently entered hydrocarbon related professions or those who are contemplating such careers. While these concerns are valid, it is still projected that fossil fuels will provide 74% of the global primary energy needs in 2050, with natural gas being the fossil fuel with the greatest longevity. Trinidad and Tobago's energy sector is expected to continue to make a major contribution to the economy during this transitionary period. We are about to embark on a series of bid rounds in which acreage onshore and offshore will be offered to energy companies for exploration of both oil and gas. So there will continue to be a need for the basic energy sector skills that are currently available and prevalent, augmented, however, by skill sets in the latest technology on digitalization, software development, data analytics, and robotics and artificial intelligence. With increased digitization and internet-based systems, there's an increasing need and for robust cybersecurity systems. Cyberspace and its underlying infrastructure are vulnerable to a wide range of risks stemming from both physical and cyber threats and hazards. You may recall that not so long ago, on the 7th of May 2021, a major US pipeline was forced to shut its entire network after it was hit by a major cyber attack. This is a growth area and a career opportunity for persons with a strong interest in programming, good analytical and communication skills. So it's another area you, the young people, should look at and one you'll be familiar with. The whole zone of cyberspace and how it fits in to an ever-changing, rapidly evolving energy sector. The downstream industry, which is dominated by petrochemicals, also provides opportunity for persons wishing to pursue a career in the gas processing industry. Trinidad and Tobago is a major producer of ammonia and methanol. While there's a movement to petrochemical production using renewable energy, it is expected that the current plants will be relevant for a considerable period. Also, it's important to note that both ammonia and methanol are energy sources and commodities being looked at for that whole greener cleaner energy moving forward. As I indicated, the production of green ammonia is a distinct possibility in the near term, and in the longer term we are seeking to establish a hydrogen economy. We are also considering the production of biomethanol from waste material. The global movement to low carbon fuels has created an opportunity for methanol as a marine fuel. Methanol is rich in hydrogen, easy to manage, inexpensive to store and transport, and is a low carbon pathway. This augurs well for the methanol industry in Trinidad and Tobago. An often ignored fact is that oil, natural gas, and petrochemicals are transported and exported from Trinidad and Tobago by ships. There is opportunity for persons wishing to make a career in the maritime industry, whether in a shore-based capacity or offshore. Fortunately, the University of Trinidad and Tobago at its Chaguanas campus offers courses at the diploma level in maritime operations, engineering and navigation, a Bachelor of Science degree in maritime operations, and a Master of Science degree in operational maritime management. It is estimated that there will be a need for an additional 89,510 maritime officers by 2026 to operate the world's merchant fleets. If you're interested in a maritime career, I suggest you visit the UTT website to determine your entry requirements. Today I've only just touched the surface of what the future of the energy sector may look like and the opportunities that it holds for you, the youth of our country. I expect that the future of energy will continue to be shaped by the need to address the threat of climate change while ensuring that we can meet growing global energy demands in a sustainable manner. I hope that I've provided some useful information that inspires you to consider the role that you can and that you should play in the energy sector and moving Trinidad and Tobago forward. On the horizon in Trinidad and Tobago, I hope that you will soon see a greater prevalence of electric cars. This is something that we intend to push forward in Trinidad and Tobago, as it will assist in lower carbon emissions. The world is dynamic. The energy sector is revolutionizing right before our very eyes, changing rapidly. Jump on board now, be part of it, be part of the movement, because it will be guided by you, the youth of our nation. As I conclude, I wish to sincerely apologize for being unable to be with you physically and virtually in a live mood, to be able to participate in what promises, and I'm certain will be a very enlightening discussion on the future of the energy sector. But I'm certain that you're in capable hands. To our youth participants today, I take this opportunity to remind you that you are the future of Trinidad and Tobago. You're also the future of this globe that we live in. And I ask each and every one of you here today to be a hero for your country and for this globe that we survive in. The future is in your hands. I thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to the opportunity in the not too distant future to interact with you on a more personal level. Please stay safe and guide our country forward, including in the energy sector. Thank you.
Now we'll hand over to Philip Julian.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Sienna, and thank you to the Heroes Foundation and to the IDB for this great opportunity to present for a few brief minutes this morning. I have to say that anyone who knows me knows that whenever I'm asked to speak about something passionate, which is whether it's hydrogen or heroes, time is not always something I'm very sensible with. So I'm going to do my very best to behave and stay in the few short minutes that I've been granted this morning. And I thought in my brief time, it would be good to start on exploring the answer to the fundamental question, what does a sustainable energy future look like? This question is so relevant for those of you who watched earlier the reminder from Greta Thunberg, who said that the whole world is waking up to the fact that a sustainable energy future no longer just means whether or not you have sufficient energy resources available. It really means whether or not those energy resources ultimately help or hurt this precious ecosystem that we inhabit here on planet Earth. And of course, I'm talking very much about the very real threat of global warming through the ongoing dangerously high emissions of greenhouse gases to our atmosphere. You know, thankfully, we live in a country, as the minister just elaborated upon, that's known to have a very well-established energy sector, built from a pioneering spirit decades ago. And partially as a result of that, we have the experience and the opportunity to get a jump start on the rest of the world of meaningfully addressing the greenhouse gas dilemma and creating a sustainable energy future for our country. And that jumpstart is based on a couple fundamental facts that I'll expand with you over the next few minutes. Namely, that Trinidad and Tobago's energy sector is currently based on a very well-established hydrogen economy. And secondly, that our hydrogen economy is hungry for more hydrogen. Now, some of you are probably saying to yourself, you know, what is this hydrogen economy? You know, it may be the first time you're hearing about this concept. You probably heard that Trinidad uses natural gas, which is a fossil fuel, but you're not too sure about this hydrogen business. So, given my extremely limited time, I'll do my very best to explain it to you in a nutshell. And if time permits during Q&A, I'll be happy to expand upon that if you're interested. So, the bottom line is this. Yes, Trinidad has historically been blessed, truly blessed, with an abundant supply of natural gas, which we use at the Point Lisas estate to make the valuable petrochemicals, ammonia and methanol, like the minister mentioned, on a tremendously large scale. You know, at one point we were the world's largest exporter of ammonia and methanol. But the big reveal that many people don't know is that it's not that natural gas itself that's used in the creation of the ammonia and the methanol. It's the hydrogen that's contained within the natural gas which is used. And that is why I can confidently say that Trinidad and Tobago has a thriving hydrogen economy, thanks in large part to its successful development of a booming ammonia and methanol production industry historically. Now, here comes the tricky part. Within natural gas, the hydrogen molecule is bonded to a carbon atom. The challenges in the local and global ammonia and methanol industries have is the act of economically extracting the hydrogen from the natural gas releases the C atom, the carbon atom, which then causes the greenhouse gas carbon dioxide to be formed and released to the atmosphere. And that, as we said earlier, is not a good thing. It does not constitute a sustainable energy future. But recently, something remarkable has begun to happen, both globally and right here in our country, in our lifetime, that has the opportunity to change all of that. Driven in large part by this global imperative to reduce carbon dioxide emissions, the technology is being perfected to allow this very same hydrogen to be economically produced from water. How, you may ask, and why is that such a big deal? Well, the how is explained fundamentally through the process of electrolysis, but to save time, I'll make it a little bit easier to understand. So as many of you may know, water is H2O. If you zap this water with electricity, it separates into the oxygen molecule, and yes, the very same hydrogen molecule. It's the very same hydrogen that is needed in the production of methanol, except now there is no C atom. There are no carbon atoms released in the generation of that hydrogen molecule. No carbon atom, no carbon dioxide can be formed, and no contribution to global warming. That's why it's such a big deal. But wait, there's more. If the very same electricity that's used to zap this very same water comes from a non-fossil fuel source, like an energy efficient source such as waste heat, or renewable energy source such as solar or wind or geothermal, then that means no fossil fuel was used at all in the creation of that hydrogen. And because no carbon atoms were released during the formation of the electricity used to form the hydrogen. All that means to say is that you now have a hydrogen molecule that has a truly carbon-free footprint associated with its production. And that's something I can call carbon-neutral hydrogen, green hydrogen, which is what the entire energy world is getting excited about. And you should be too, for a couple of reasons, which I'll elaborate upon, and I'll close with. The first is, Trinidad and Tobago is currently challenged with not having enough hydrogen from natural gas to supply its hungry ammonia and methanol plants. So now, instead of trying to feed these plants with just more fossil fuels, natural gas, we now have the opportunity to also feed them with fossil-free fuel, that very same carbon-neutral hydrogen that I just described. And the second reason why you should be excited is that work is already underway right here in Trinidad and Tobago to do just that. With strong support from the government, as you've heard from the minister, and in part through the NewGen project, which is being developed by Kenneth J. Green, the private sector company that I had the privilege of starting up last year. What's even more awesome is that with a little luck, the NewGen project may be the world's first large-scale hydrogen production facility, which should be something for all of us to be proud of. That Trinidad and Tobago will show the world how to improve its carbon footprint of its petrochemical sectors through our actions. That Trinidad and Tobago will show the world what a sustainable energy future could look like. So, now that you know what a sustainable energy future could look like, the question of the day is, what are you going to do to help make that future a reality? I have a couple of ideas which we can get into in the Q&A session, but I'd much rather hear from you on what your ideas are. Because while my generation may be blazing some trails and we may be running this leg of the sustainable energy relay, we will be shortly passing that baton to you, the next generation. And it is up to you to get ready to take it and run even further and faster than we could have ever hoped for, and be part of something that your children will be grateful for you starting. Much like I'm grateful for my own father, Professor Ken Julian, for his role in helping to start something extraordinary in our country's energy sector some 50 plus years ago. And also for starting up Kenneth J. Green's parent company, Kenneth J. Systems, some 25 years ago. In fact, coincidentally, today is Dad's 89th birthday, so happy birthday, Dad. And it's not without its own pleasant irony that I find myself closing by sharing with you today the very same advice that he gave me, probably right around the age of many of you listening today. Start something that makes a positive difference in other people's lives. Thank you all for your time today, and I look forward to the rest of today's session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Philip. That has been very profound, very technical for those of you who like chemistry and engineering, and gives us a lot to think about future opportunity and synergy. But with no further ado, we'll hand over to Alicia Taylor, and then we'll...
Good morning. You let me know if you're seeing my presentation. Are you seeing it and you're hearing me? Okay, so we wanted to talk today about the Caribbean's clean energy transition. So what exactly is clean or green energy? It's an energy type that is generated from natural resources such as wind or sunlight or water, and it comes from renewable energy sources. So we'll use clean energy and renewable energy interchangeably. I just wanted to highlight some of the renewable energy systems that we have. So there's ground-mounted solar, there's rooftop solar, There's onshore wind, for which you need to have vast amounts of land. And then there's offshore wind on the sea, for example. And there's battery storage. Now, some of you may or may not know that there'll obviously be times where there's not sunlight during the day and there's insufficient wind. And so you're going to have intermittency issues if you're using solar or wind. And so this is where battery storage comes in to sort of harness the energy that you can use in those periods. There's waste to energy, where they'll use municipal solid waste, which is the waste that we throw away from our homes and from companies. There's hydroelectric power, and this is using water in motion to create energy. So you see there a picture of a dam. There's biomass, which uses plant materials or animals. So in the Caribbean context, we could use materials such as sugarcane bagasse or rice husks. And then we heard the minister a little earlier speak about electric vehicles. So we're beginning very slowly to enter into the electric vehicle market. And you may see some hybrids, but we're going to see more and more entering the Caribbean region. And lastly, as Philip mentioned, the newest entrance, which is green hydrogen. So why transition to clean energy? We want to mitigate climate change. We're all aware of the changes that are happening locally and internationally. You're seeing a lot of flooding, a lot of hurricanes, a lot of heat waves. And using clean energy generates energy that produces no greenhouse gas emissions from fossil fuels, and it will reduce the air pollution. We also want to achieve sustainable development goals. So countries worldwide would have signed a Paris Agreement where they made commitments for their country of what each country targets are in terms of renewable energy and reducing CO2 emissions. We also need to diversify the energy supply, or you'll also hear the term energy matrix, and reduce the dependence on oil and gas. Even in Trinidad and Tobago, where we're very dependent on oil and gas, and predominantly gas, we're also looking at the energy matrix, as the minister mentioned. And in many of the Caribbean countries, they are looking at cost savings because they have very high fossil fuel importation costs. And so moving towards renewable energy is not only environmentally responsible, but it also helps bring down their overall costs. And of course, it creates economic development and creation of new jobs in renewable energy, manufacturing, and installation. I just want to give a few more thoughts that I had regarding the clean energy discussion. So this is shifting to a low carbon energy system, but it still remains challenging in the Caribbean context. Although Caribbean islands possess abundant natural resources for harvesting clean energy, such as sunlight from solar, wind, it's still a very slow transition in the Caribbean. So Caribbean countries need to plan their transition based on the projected needs of their country, the availability and adequacy of energy resources. Is there a lot of sunlight, for example, in Trinidad, in Barbados? Is there wind that they can use? Is it better to use hydroelectric power via dams? They need to decide what the energy matrix is and define that. And at IDB Invest, where I work, we are the private sector arm of the IDB group. And we provide support through advisory services. We also can tap into certain donor funds where we would provide technical assistance to help offset costs. For example, when you're coming to put together a large project, whether it be solar, wind, or any renewable project, you need to have a feasibility study and you need to engage a consultant to complete that. And so we would help offset some of those costs to help the project. And then we would also provide financing to renewable energy and energy efficiency companies. I wanted to also highlight some of the Paris commitments that the Caribbean has made already. And I've selected 6 Caribbean countries, and these are actually member companies of the IDB group. Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, Bahamas, Guyana, Jamaica, and Suriname. So we see that Trinidad and Tobago's commitment is 10% renewable energy by 2021. That's this year. And reduction of CO2 emissions by 15% by 2030. The most aggressive target currently being Barbados in the region. They have a 100% renewable energy target by 2030. And they're moving forward to achieve that goal. Guyana as well is also 100% renewable energy by 2040. I think with the entrance of their oil and gas discoveries, they may want to redefine the energy matrix there, but they still have a very aggressive target. Bahamas and Jamaica as well have pretty aggressive targets. Suriname, interestingly, says that their target is 25% or above for renewable energy by 2025. And as of 2019, they are already producing 47.13% using renewable energy. So how is the Caribbean already transitioning, and what are some of the upcoming projects within the Caribbean in clean energy? So in Trinidad and Tobago, there's a small solar PV project at Piarco Airport. The minister spoke about the BPTT and Shell project under Lightsource BP as the developer. They're going to install and develop 112 megawatt solar plants, 2 PV plants, one in Brechin Castle, one in Orange Grove. And then Mr. Julian spoke about the green hydrogen power plant project that his company, Kenneth J. Green, using NewGen, its subsidiary, will be developing with the other investors. In Jamaica, we have Wigton Wind Farm. They have already developed 3 wind farms at 62.7 megawatts. And just so that you understand megawatts is a measure of energy output. So when you're looking at a power plant, any type, it'll typically be termed in megawatts. There's also a 37 megawatt Paradise Park solar photovoltaic plant in Jamaica. And in Barbados, the Barbados Light and Power Electricity Company is establishing Lambert's wind farm project. Suriname has a 180 megawatt hydroelectric power station, and Barbados has micro solar grids that the Bahamas Power and Light, which is the electricity company there, is developing. At Cayman Islands, we have a 5 megawatt solar PV plant that BMR is also developing, and BMR is part of the Virgin Group. So how can you as the youth help in this transition? Adopt energy efficiency measures. Replace regular light bulbs with more efficient LED lighting. Turn off unnecessary lights. Turn off the AC when you're not in the room. Wash clothes in cold water. We heard at the beginning of the video to recycle. Very important for you to educate yourself on the national and global concerns renewable energy is trying to address. Become informed. Be a powerful advocate for climate change and voice your concerns. The youth today are very active on social media. Use those platforms and those avenues to get that message out and to share with your peers and even the adults to call on the country to do more to transition to renewable energy. You also need to equip yourself, for those who are very interested in this area, to enter the renewable energy and energy efficiency labor force. And to that end, I just wanted to highlight some of the opportunities that are available for youth in the clean energy transition. There are different universities and institutes, both regionally, locally, and internationally. You can do a renewable energy engineering technology diploma at UTT. You can do renewable energy management at Cave Hill, Barbados. And Wigton Wind Farm, which I mentioned in Jamaica, they have a renewable energy training laboratory in Jamaica, and they give very practical, on-the-job type of experience of how to install solar panels, etc. And if you're interested in learning more, I can always share that information with the Heroes Foundation team that can share it with you. And lastly, I just wanted to end with a bit of fun trivia. Which country do you think is 100% run on renewable energy currently? So I'll put up a picture of a geothermal system. It's in a cold location. It's Iceland. Iceland is running on 100% renewable energy. It gets 75% of its electricity from hydropower and 25% from geothermal. Which country is almost 100%? It's a little closer to home. It's in the Latin American region. Costa Rica. Costa Rica is reaching its target of becoming carbon neutral. It's already at 99.62% using wind, solar, and geothermal energy. I just want to thank you for your attention. And if you would like any of this information, reach out to the team at Heroes.
Thank you all for the incredibly powerful discussion and points. I hope everyone feels uplifted and enlightened after the presentation. I want to start off with a common theme that all of you have addressed in your presentation, and that's climate change. Now, decisions in the past did not have that constraint, or at least the constraint wasn't that rigid as it is now, and we're seeing the effects of climate change firsthand through hurricanes of increasing intensity in our Caribbean neighbor. Hurricanes follow a different path. Now they go all the way up the east coast of the US. And surely considerations for climate change and environmental and social governance are creating new constraints in our energy transition. So I'll start with Philip. How has decision making changed now compared to 25 years ago, given the fact that climate change is now a looming threat?
That's a great one. I would say gone are the days of looking just at the bottom line, right? It's the current day investor or forward-thinking company is spending more and more time and attention on seeing how its decisions impact all of its stakeholders, not just the shareholders who would get the financial return. And that's happening because everybody is realizing the criticality of ensuring that balance is achieved, that you're not putting profit before planet or before people for that matter. So more and more, you just have to Google it. You see, even especially the big companies in the energy sector globally are coming under increased pressure to make sure that their balance is in that environmental and social space. And as you said, it shows up with the terminology ESG, which I strongly encourage the young generation to really get on board for, because the whole world is moving that way. And ironically, those companies that pay more attention to that ESG space are the companies that are attracting more investment and ultimately will be successful and sustainable in the long run.
Thank you, Philip. Go ahead, Alicia.
Yeah, I totally agree with Philip, and I think that, ourselves as a multilateral development bank, environmental and social concerns are at the forefront of any project that we're looking at and financing. So any renewable energy project, there's a very robust environmental and social component to it. We hire consultants to work with the particular developers to ensure that it's not affecting any wildlife. For example, if you're developing a wind farm, and I think that is very critical in every renewable energy and clean energy project today.
Excellent point. We have to make sure that even though the projects have good intentions, which are to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, they can have unintended consequences, and all of these things need to be considered. I do want to open it up to our youth on this panel, so I'll start with Sion. Is there anything that you've heard today that resonates with you strongly and you want to hear more about?
Um, well, I'm very happy. I was very happy to hear the minister work on the investments in solar parks and geoparks and stuff like that. Things at the airport. My question to the panelists: what do you believe is holding back the Caribbean when compared to other regions of the world? And let me give you, for example, in other spheres, renewable resources are used more vastly. So we're keeping back the Caribbean from heading that way.
I think I could take a stab at it first. I think the other more developed countries are years ahead of us, just in terms of their foresight on renewable energy, in terms of the legislation that they have in place to incorporate renewable energy, in terms of not just legislation but regulations, and also where the tariff pricing is. If you think of Trinidad and Tobago, for example, I think most of us are aware that we get a very highly subsidized utility bill. If you look at any of your parents' water bill or electricity bill, we're paying close to nothing. And that really comes from the government subsidizing us. And that's not the case in many countries elsewhere. And so you have a more competitive environment for renewable energy versus fossil fuels, right? And here, we would need to make some changes to the tariff. And that is a very fluid discussion in Trinidad and throughout the Caribbean region. And then you also have to realize that a country like Trinidad and Tobago that has been very dependent and has had a lot of oil and gas reserves didn't automatically have the need at a point in time to look at the renewable energy side of it. But now it is a very real discussion. It's one from a social responsibility and an environmental responsibility standpoint, but also from an economic standpoint, because the tariff is not going to remain where it is forever. And so you're going to come into a more competitive environment, and you need to be able to see what types of renewable energy you can use in the local and Caribbean context.
Thank you, Alicia. Diane, any thoughts on that?
What do you think is needed to, okay, so following up from that answer, what do you believe is needed to push and drive Caribbean territories faster, may I say, towards getting some of these technologies on board, like solar panels, more widespread, wind farms and stuff like that, not only for commercial use, but for personal use, like having a solar panel or a solar water heater at your house.
Yeah. So I think that the tariff is one, but you also have to have an enabling environment. And so this is something that Trinidad and the Caribbean is now sort of getting to. And there's obviously a gestation period to have all of these things in place to enable renewable energy to be more widespread locally and regionally. If you take Barbados, for example, though, because they have this very aggressive target of 100% renewable energy by 2030, you would realize that they're a little ahead of other Caribbean islands because they've put the feed-in tariff in place. They're looking at their legislation. They're now crafting what is called the Power Purchase Agreement. So that's a contract that governs the renewable energy project, whether it be solar, wind, whatever. And so that's something that the Caribbean is not as familiar with. And so you have to bring in as well that international expertise often to help in crafting those types of documents, to to ensure that you have a very robust project and a bankable project, because of course at the end of the day you're going to need both equity investors and debt financing to get these projects off the ground. And then you also need to have support from the governments themselves. And I think it was really good that the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, he spoke about that this morning. You know, what Trinidad is doing, for example, with this Light Source PP solar project. That's a large project. That's a landmark project for Trinidad and Tobago. It's one of the largest solar projects in the region. And then Philip's project with green hydrogen. As he mentioned, this is going to be likely, if not the first, one of the first utility scale green hydrogen plants in the world.
Thank you, Alicia. I would like to hand the floor over to Mariah. What has resonated with you? What would you like to explore more?
Well, what I want to know more about is that I love the ideas of having our youths do projects for our country, right? So I want to know, how do we get youths to work on these projects that you see, like the solar panel and stuff on?
I can take a first pass at that, Mariah. So I think both Alicia's presentation and the minister's words gave some very good specific examples of how youth could get involved. But to take one a little specifically, like if you look at, say, universities, University of the West Indies or UTT, you know, Chemistry Green recently started something with them, as well as with the NGC, you know, the National Gas Company and the Ministry of Energy and the National Energy Corporation. We started something called a Hydrogen Research Collaborative. And all that means is it's kind of like a green think tank where, you know, we would see project opportunities for Trinidad and Tobago in the region, and we would go to UTT or UE and say, hey, can we get a group of students to get together and start working on these projects? So it's, I would say, more valuable to be working on some of those kind of projects in the short to medium term that start exploring other opportunities for Trinidad and Tobago to get innovatively involved in other parts of this exciting, new and emerging renewable industry. So that I could see as the next good step over the next few years. And in the meantime, just as the other speakers have been saying, just learn as much as you can about renewables and about hydrogen, because that will then set you up very nicely to get further involved in very real valuable projects relating to this emerging industry for Trinidad and Tobago through the universities to begin with. Yeah.
I think also, you know, young people, you all have the advantage of social media, which, you know, I didn't have as a youth. And so you don't need to wait to get in touch with a TV station if you want to put a message out. If you want to organize a drive for, let's say, recycling or educating the population on the benefits of recycling, you can do that now. You use your social media accounts and you start that drive. I think piggybacking on to what Philip said, I think another avenue at this stage as well, where you're sort of trying to decide what career you may want to pursue, is if renewable energy seems like something interesting, begin to go online and research what type of jobs do they have in renewable energy. And if you see postings for particular jobs, they normally list what kind of qualifications they're looking for. And in that, you can decide, okay, this might be something that I want to do. Where are the universities or the institutes that provide that kind of academic training?
Very good point. And remember, the energy sector is evolving very rapidly. You have to stay agile. You have to develop skills that are transferable, so that you can transfer skills from a solar project to a wind project to a hydro project. You can't predict really what's going to happen, but you can only reinforce yourself and your skills. I want to talk about another common theme, and that is green transport that every one of you have addressed, whether it's electric buses, maritime transport, and electric vehicles. And to me, that means that there's synergy, right? Because decarbonizing our transport and developing unique solutions to not only reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but it could probably solve our traffic crisis. So I want to explore the theme of synergy and finding opportunities between different sectors and different industries. And I'll hand over to Philip, who's developing a hydrogen project, which is, I'll let you speak more about it, but it's truly a project that personifying and symbolizing synergy.
Yeah, so I'll be very quick, Sienna, because again, I could go on for way too long on that. But in a nutshell, yes, hydrogen can be a fuel for vehicles and for buses, much like you hear of electric vehicles. There are hydrogen vehicles. Probably works better for large scale, so buses or ferries. Imagine Trinidad and Tobago's ferry between Trinidad and Tobago being hydrogen powered. Imagine the cruise liners that you see coming into Trinidad and Tobago to get refueled with hydrogen. So the linkage between hydrogen as a transportation enabler, a green transportation enabler, as well as an energy transition enabler is huge. And again, I think as the minister said, ammonia and methanol can be transported to they are currently transported around the world. That's been going on for decades. But now you have this great opportunity of taking that hydrogen molecule out of the ammonia. So instead of using the ammonia to make fertilizer, you can actually just use the ammonia to get fossil-free fuel from one point of the world to another, or to generate that fossil-free fuel right on the spot. So I think that's what you're getting at, Sian, in terms of the versatility and synergy that can show up in this new energy era.
Thank you, Philip. We're going to end in a minute or two, so I'd like to invite each of you to give one sentence of what resonated with you and what are you going to think about for the rest of the day after this discussion. So I'll start with Alicia, Zion, and Mariah.
I think what will resonate with me is the fact that the youth are interested in this area, renewable energy. And I think that it's important for them to do their research and also be advocates.
I think what has resonated with me is that there is so much on the horizon. It's just that has not been widely spoken about, and that we are actually leading the way in a sense in the Caribbean in the renewable resource field. So I'm excited at that.
Mariah?
Well, for me, I am really excited for this new age that is coming on. You know, before it was like the big oil rush that was going on, and now we have the big green energy rush where everybody's talking about climate change and stuff like that. And what resonated with me was that me as a person, we need to change the habits that we have end up getting based on being too comfortable with our situation. And climate change has really opened our eyes to show the change that we need to bring about, right? And for me, I try my best to say, by that you're supporting a company that's not going green. You should try and help support the companies that go in green and trying to help our environment to get better.
Excellent point. Both of your wallet, really. Go ahead, Philip.
Yeah, no, I just have to say what resonated with me is how inspired I've been by Zion and by Mariah, both in this panel and in those remarkable videos that preceded or opened this section. I mean, just to see how well informed you are, how articulate you are, it's just remarkable to see what a great starting point you guys already are at. And as Alicia said earlier, with social media on your side and you're coming from such a well-informed, fact-based place, I'm very excited for what the future holds and proud to be part of it and to know you guys.
Thank you all. This discussion has really highlighted to me that we face tremendous challenges, but within those challenges, we face tremendous opportunity. And Trinidad and Tobago has a wealth of intelligent, motivated people. And by collaborating on platforms such as this, and please feel free to reach out and share your idea because you are budding with ideas to make Trinidad and Tobago a better place. So thank you all for your attention and your participation. I'll hand it over to Lauren at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much for such a phenomenal discussion. The future of energy is ahead of us. Sienna, you wrapped it up so well. I don't think there's anything else that I can add to that. There are tremendous challenges that we face, but there are so many opportunities that we can all start to overcome together once we focus on where we need to go. So thank you all very much for sharing on the future of energy. Thank you for viewing. We will be back at 1:30 p.m. this afternoon to start our discussion on equality and equal world. How do we get to an equal world? What do we need to do to get there? Thank you all very much, and we'll see you this afternoon.